Some horror films leave you feeling terrified, many leave you disappointed, but rarely do we get a horror that feels triumphant. And this is exactly what Keith Thomas's The Vigil does wholeheartedly. Full spoilers incoming. If you haven't seen The Vigil, please stop watching this and go check it out. I'm gonna talk spoilers and feelings, so feel free to come back after you've watched it. Steeped in ancient Jewish folklore, The Vigil is a supernatural horror film set over the course of a single evening in Brooklyn's Hasidic Borough Park neighborhood. Low on funds and having recently left his insular religious community, Yaakov reluctantly accepts an offer from his former rabbi to take on the responsibility as an overnight shomer, fulfilling the Jewish practice of watching over the body of a deceased community member. But shortly after arriving, Yaakov begins to realize that something is very, very wrong. In fact, it turns out that there is a malevolent demon called a Mazik that is haunting the recently deceased and is now looking to make Yaakov its new host. So, I was intrigued. I really enjoy demonic haunted house type stories, especially when they take place in one location, so this was highly recommended. This felt like something that I would like. It starts slow and feels familiar with some standard horror tropes like dark settings, a moody atmosphere, and a couple of jump scares. The shots where Yaakov is just sitting in the living room with the dead body behind him under that white sheet was nerve-wracking. I felt my eyes searching the background, just waiting for the sheet behind Yaakov to move. Hell, even the sound mixing was fucking brutal. The sound design was soul-crushing as it perfectly built itself up with its pulsating electronica. It felt like the literal manifestation of a panic attack in music form, and it really heightened the horror. What makes this movie unique is that it's a supernatural horror that looks at spiritualism and demonology through the lens of Jewish folklore and Hasidic tradition. I'm so used to the typical Christian exorcism or Ouija board genre, but this felt foreign to me, and seeing this movie delve into Judaism was something I really liked. But its real power was in the immersive characterization, in the gradual growth and heart within our main protagonist, Yaakov. Played brilliantly by Dave Davis, Yaakov is a sympathetic character with a tragic backstory. This dude is going through the ringer. He's estranged from his Hasidic community, now trying to pick up the pieces to his new life. He's dealing with culture shock, he's struggling financially, and he's dealing with survivor's guilt over the death of his little brother. He feels lost, helpless, and unsure of himself. He works hard to adapt to his new life, and he takes medication, and he feels broken. We see this in his demeanor, and in an early scene where he is unable to flirt with a young woman who is interested in him. He second-guesses everything and does not feel like himself. He is vulnerable, which makes it that much more thematic when he takes the job as the showman. Seeing the Mazik manipulate and warp Yaakov's already fragile mind with nightmares, delusions, and hallucinations has a welcoming familiarity to it. I love demonic ghost stories, especially the ones that twist the very fabric of reality. Movies like Oculus or The Autopsy of Jane Doe are mind-warping films that terrify me because nothing is scarier when you do not know if the threats you experience are real or if they're all in your head. All in all, this movie had many elements that I enjoyed in horror, while at the same time presenting it as something new and different with its Jewish heritage. But then the movie does something different, something that made it stand out for me. Instead of the normal outcome where the main characters are ultimately overcome by the forces of evil, Yaakov perseveres. Having seen the demon firsthand and understanding that it wants his soul, Yaakov knows he has to confront the Mazik. In a scene that had me on the edge of my seat, Mrs. Litvak calmly says this might help, and she gives Yaakov a set of Teflon, small, black leather boxes containing scrolls of parchment inscribed with verses from the Torah. Seeing Yaakov methodically wrap the Teflon around his arms with such intensity and focus, like a soldier preparing for battle, just feels fucking electric and sublime. It's a truly visceral and triumphant experience. In this moment, I was fully immersed. I just knew that Yaakov could overcome the evil within the house. Cathartic and thematic with its themes of letting go of the past and moving forward, we feel Yaakov's bravery, and we, the audience, are empowered. It's cathartic because this is the moment where there is a transformative change in him. Both as he casts the literal demon out of Mr. Schultz's body, he also casts out his own personal demons. We see a broken man put himself back together and get his life back. Seeing Yakov overcome his fear and find his confidence is endearing, and is a fresh change of pace in a genre where evil tends to win. Seeing morning come and his job as Shomer finished, we not only mentally see Yakov's transformation, but we see it physically in his posture, in the way that he now speaks with his rabbi, and in the way that he's able to casually text the woman that's interested in him for coffee. It's a triumphant moment that feels earned. This is my favorite movie of 2021 so far. It got me so fucking jacked to take out the spirits in my house. I absolutely loved how empowering it made me feel at the end. When we're talking about horror, Triumphant is something hard to come by, something we don't expect to feel. But this movie is immersive in both its brutal sound and Jewish folklore, and I was fully invested in this supernatural horror.